Welcome into a Monday edition of Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery. Today on the show, we're going to recap the Hawks weekend. Yeah, the disappointing weekend that it was, as they are now on the verge of elimination in their first round series against the Miami Heat. And it is draft week. Woohoo! We're finally here for the Atlanta Falcons draft. I'm going to give you kind of my thoughts about just where we are with this draft and what's going to be happening all this week. It is Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta. We welcome you into another edition of Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery. We ask you, of course, part of the Locked On Sports Atlanta network. We do ask you to head over to our YouTube page, put it in the browser up there, Locked On Sports Atlanta. You find the page, you hit the subscribe button, you leave us a comment, you tell us what you think about the show. We always like your feedback, and I do go through and read all of the comments from people, good, bad, or otherwise. Hey, listen, it's all part of the territory, right? You can follow me on my Twitter page at JMCH316. Well, we had a couple of more games in the Atlanta Hawks first round series against the Miami Heat. Both of these games back at State Farm Arena. Of course, Friday night back home, it was a great crowd. I was actually at State Farm Arena for the game, was broadcasting before the start of the game and got a chance to stay and watch the first half and everything. And it was a great environment, and certainly the crowd was fired up. And we knew that going into it. I felt a lot better about Friday's ability to win the game and wasn't so sure about last night. Well, we'll talk about that here in just a minute. Of course, Hawks did hang on Friday night to beat the Heat 111-110. Now, looking back now, I guess with the benefit of hindsight and given what happened last night, you feel like the Hawks escaped with one. You feel like the Hawks did what they had to do. They found a way to come back. You know, Miami Friday night, they went on a 21-0 run. They had all these big runs. They had multiple times. They had double-digit leads on the Hawks. Even though I thought the Hawks played really well and the Hawks shot their best night from three-point land in the game, I think that was that was one of the big differences. They got lots of contributions from different people in the game. You know, it wasn't necessarily just Trae Young doing his thing. Trae shot the ball okay. He was 6 of 14. But again, he had another rough night from three, only 2 for 6. I mean, he didn't really get it cranked up and going. But they got a good performance out of Bogey. Wright had a good game coming off the bench. Hunter had 17 points. Things really kind of clicked for the Hawks. But it did feel like that they dodged a bullet and maybe escaped with a win where they could have very easily lost that game. But Trae was magnificent in the fourth quarter, and he did his thing. So they found a way to get a victory and take care of the Heat on Friday night. So we turn around and we get into yesterday, and there was a lot of buzz going into the game because, as we got word all through the day, Clint Capella was going to become available for the Atlanta Hawks. And so we knew that he was just about ready to come back. We knew he was going to be out Friday night. We got the word early on enough that Clint was going to be out Friday night. Wasn't really sure, though, if A, he was going to come back on Sunday, or B, if they would hold him and sort of wait for this series to shift to Miami just to give him a couple of extra days of rest and work and get the swelling down and everything that goes along with an injury like that. And if you're not familiar, it was a hyperextension of the knee, but it certainly had swelling and everything that went along with it. And I think that's the big reason why we didn't see him on Friday night, is not so much the rehab part, or the strength part, I should say, but just the swelling of it, just trying to get that fluid down. So he comes in and plays last night. Now, you could make an argument last night that the Hawks had their full complement of players and played their worst game of the series. Last night was a debacle. I mean, there's no other way to describe that. Hawks came out and played well. They were up by 1, believe it or not, after the first quarter. Hunter comes out last night. He hits his first couple of threes. He hits another basket, hits another 3. He starts out 3 for 3 from three-point land. He starts out 4 for 4. And even though Trae was sort of sluggish and getting into the mix, you know, you had a couple of baskets from him. You had a few rebounds from Clint Capella. You had some defensive presence in there. Got a basket from John Collins. You got a thing here and a thing there and a beat, bop, boop, bop, bop, beep, bop. And things are looking good. And then the game just got away from the Hawks. The game just escaped. The Hawks put up 15 points in the second quarter. They were outscored in each of the last 3 quarters, with the second quarter being their downfall. What bothers me about the game last night is, well, there are a couple things that bother me about the game last night. One is your backs were up against the wall and you didn't respond very well. Friday night was one of those things where you saw the Hawks have the resiliency that we saw in the playoffs last year. Backs against the wall. We're down. We're not going to lose. Kevin Herter written an article earlier in the day in the Players Tribune. Hey, we're not ready to give this thing up. We're back home. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Okay. They didn't play well, but they found a way to fight, scratch, and claw. Their star player played like a star in the fourth quarter. And most importantly is they got a victory. Don't care if it was by 1 point. Don't care if it was by 100 points. I don't care what the reasons were. At the end of the day, all that matters is you found a way to win a game. And could they have lost that game on Friday? Yes, but you found a way to win. So that same scenario spills into last night's game. And you come out playing well, and you come out with some fire, and Miami's going to come out and try to they want to take one of these games. And then the second quarter, it just all falls apart for the Atlanta Hawks. And their shot selection starts to go bad, and the turnovers start to come back, and you gave up way too many offensive rebounds in the first half of that game. You couldn't hit your free throws. So you couldn't shoot the three. You couldn't hit your free throws. You didn't have defensive intensity. You didn't have a lot of oomph in your game. You gave up too many offensive rebounds. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how did you enjoy the play? That's what's so frustrating. And look, I'm going to talk a little bit more in the next segment about Nate McMillan. But what's concerning is, and we're going to get into, not today, but obviously probably very quickly here, because I'll go ahead and say it now. I don't think the Hawks win on Tuesday night. I don't think the Hawks go down to Miami. I think Miami smells blood in the water, and I think they're going to close this thing out at home and be done and move on so that they can have a little bit of rest and get ready for their next series out there. And if the Hawks don't play any more inspired on Tuesday night than they did last night, then this thing will absolutely be over. It won't take very long for the Heat to just put the Hawks away with all of it. But we'll talk about Nate McMillan, because I don't think he did a good job. I don't think he's done a real good job this series in some ways about trying to help his team out and just kind of change up some of the momentum for all of it. But you came out and laid an egg. You came out and you had Capella back and you had the crowd fired up and this and that. Everybody says it was every bit as loud, if not louder, on Sunday than it was on Friday. And you put that effort up. And it just didn't look like the Hawks could figure out anything. And there was a lot of excuse making. And there was a lot of just, well, it's one of those things. Okay, this is definitely a flawed basketball team. They're going to have a busy offseason. They're going to have to figure some things out, because what hurts is we're getting more and more to the idea that last season was a fluke. That last season was very flukish, and I really hope that's not the case. We're going to talk more about this. We're going to talk more about Nick McMillan when we come back. It is Jon Chuckery with you here on Hittin' Hard on the Locked On Sports Network.